Hey everyone, today we are making candy cane dog treats out of beets and apples. So right here I'm just cutting some of the skin off of the beets. I've never worked with beets before, so I'm not really sure if this is the correct way to do it. I did try to look it up online first. So I did wash the beets off. I'm just going to cut the skin here, and then I'm going to chop them up into cubes and then throw them in the blender and see if it comes out as a puree. I did realize after doing this and after using the blender that it did not puree it very good. So I would suggest just buying beet puree at the store instead of trying to make it yourself, unless you have the skills and the right kitchen tools to do it. You should also know that your hands are going to get very red from the juice from the beet, but don't worry, it does not stain. I also use the beets instead of just using regular flour and dye because dye is illegal in a lot of other countries, and I try to make these as healthy and authentic for the dogs as possible. So I try not to use any dyes, no added flavors, just all ingredients that everybody can pronounce. And that way I know exactly what my dog is having, and I don't have to worry about it being, healthy. And this is what it looks like after it's said and done. As you can see, there's still quite a bit of big chunks in there. So again, I would just buy the puree already made from the store. So I'm really curious to see how these turn out. I wanted to make them because it is Christmas time. So I thought the dogs would love to have some little candy cane treats. So now we're just going to add 1 egg and 1 cup of flour. I used whole wheat flour as I'm just trying to pick the healthiest ingredients for the dogs. You're just going to give it a really good mix. It is going to be very thick and hard to mix. A spoon might actually work better in this case, or whisk, or a hand mixer. Just whatever you have at home. I try to use the most basic, simple tools. Now here I am, I'm just rolling them up with my hands. Nothing special here. It's basically what you would do when you were a kid with Play-Doh. You're just going to roll it up into like a worm figure. And now we're doing the same thing over with the apple, except for this time I'm not going to use the blender. I'm just going to chop it up with my knife and see how that works. I'm going to try to make it to the most finest pieces that I can. Then we're going to add 1 egg and 1 cup of flour and rinse and repeat. The apple that I'm using here is also a Honeycrisp, and I only used 1 apple, the whole thing. Of course, I de-seeded it, took all that stuff off. And here you can see I'm just rolling it up again, trying to get them the same size and shape as each other. Now this is where I ran into a problem. These are supposed to be much thinner and more the size of actual candy canes, but because I did not use a puree and the batter was so chunky, I had a very hard time in getting it to the right consistency. So it was not like dough that I could really manage and form into these candy cane like shapes. So these are very fat and chunky. But again, if you do it with the puree, these would come out better. But I figured I would still show this just as a reference of exactly kind of not what to do and different ways that you can make this recipe better. Now, mind you, I'm still going to give these to my dogs. I'm just not going to give them the whole treat at one time. The flavor should still be there. There is no difference in it, and I used fresh ingredients, so it's all going to taste the same. It's just not going to look as pretty, which dogs don't really care what it looks like. But these are going to be very big, and it was very hard to twist them around each other to make them into candy canes. But all the same, the dogs are getting candy cane treats for Christmas. Alright, so finally I throw them in the oven at 180 degrees for about 30 minutes, and I also let them cool in the oven because I do not have a cooling rack. Alright, so this is what they look like before I put them in the oven, and this is what it looks like after I put them in the oven. The dogs did approve, they did eat them up very fast, they were still tasty. If you liked the video, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to have plenty more of these videos. I will see you on the next one.